The following 20 scenes, all of which come from pretty darn terrible horror offerings, are prime examples of scenes that are just so bad you wish you could scrub them from your memory. They vary heavily, ranging from bad special effects to poorly executed scares, from ghastly bits of dialogue to rock bottom bits of filmmaking from one of the most infamous directors in the industry. So without further ado, I am Gareth, this is What Culture Horror, and here are 20 awful horror movie moments you wish you could forget. Number 20, The Haunting of Sharon Tate, the reenactment of the murders. Horror films do sometimes explore real-life tragedies, and, well, that's all well and good, but it has to be done respectfully, right? And in a way that isn't exploitative? Yeah, The Haunting of Sharon Tate most definitely did not get that memo. This risible horror film, which sees Sharon Tate experiencing premonitions of the murders before they happen, received several Razzie nominations, and it was definitely deserved. In 2019, we already saw the Manson family murders reduced to a silly fight sequence in Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And somehow, that very same year, we got what some see as an even more infuriating treatment. The premonition of the murders comes in the form of an abysmally executed load of gratuitous, exploitative violence. Like at one point, while victim Abigail Folger is being stabbed, she literally says aloud, "You got me, I'm already dead." I mean, who wrote this? The Haunting of Sharon Tate was quite possibly the most offensive movie released in 2019. Number 19, The Final Destination, the franchise's worst death. So, the Final Destination franchise is best known for those brutally suspenseful, darkly hilarious death scenes, which will make you terrified of innocent, everyday objects and send your anxiety levels just through the damn roof. There's a reason why so many people are scared to drive behind a log truck now. Alas, not all Final Destination deaths are created equal, and the absolute worst of the lot is the death of Jonathan Groves in 2009's The Final Destination, which is near universally acknowledged as the franchise's worst film. The entire scene in which the unfortunate Jonathan is crushed by a hospital bathtub is exactly what a Final Destination sequence should never be, and that is boring. Furthermore, the key to a great Final Destination set piece is it playing on universal fears or seeming almost believable. But there is none of that here. A hospital bathtub would just never behave in this way. And no trained doctor would leave it running like that. What were they thinking? And just when you think it can't get any worse, it is actually ripped off from somewhere else. Yet in the 2000s, Black Flame released a series of Final Destination original novels, most of which are actually pretty darn good. But one of them, called End of the Line, features a death scene almost identical to, you guessed it, this one. Further showing just how lazy this whole set piece really was. Number 18, Child's Play 3, Tyler's Endless Whining. Is this guy the most annoying horror movie kid ever? In the first two Child's Play films, Chucky, the killer doll, went after Andy, who was of course a young kid who got the possessed doll for his birthday. Now, kid characters are always a little bit tricky, aren't they? So Andy was a breath of fresh air in that he was, first off, likeable, which is always good, and secondly, excellently played by Alex Vincent, who was a child actor wise beyond his years. The third film takes place a few years later, with Andy, now a teenager, in military school and played by Justin Whalin. But Chucky actually goes after a new kid, a fellow cadet, called Ronald Tyler. And this kid, oh boy, this kid is so damn tiresome. As well as being foolishly trusting of Chucky even for a young kid, his endlessly whiny demeanor is grating to the bloody extreme. Furthermore, while one always does feel a little bit reluctant to criticize a child actor, I mean, few children can act and emote in the same way that an older, more emotionally experienced person is able to, right? Still, Jeremy Silver's performance is profoundly irritating. Thankfully, Tyler never returned in any of the sequels. Number 17, It Chapter 2, The Witch. It Chapter 2 is a very weak horror sequel indeed. More so than you might remember, actually. As well as being overlong and overstuffed, it was also a failure in the scares department. Nowhere more so than right here in this scene. In this sequence, Beverly goes to her childhood home and finds an old woman living there. Only for it to turn out that this woman is actually a witch and a form that it/Pennywise has taken. Now, this scene was in the book, so it had a reason to be in the movie. A giant naked crony rendered in god-awful CGI, just running towards Beverly in the goofiest of ways. This was far from the only iffy moment in It Chapter 2. There was also that scene where Juice Newton's Angel of the Morning started blaring out when Pennywise was attacking Eddie, remember that? But this is definitely the movie's lowest point right here. Number 16, Alone in the Dark, the opening crawl. German director Uwe Boll is deservedly recognized as one of the worst directors of all time, thanks to his filmography of turkeys and his disturbing ability to make the wrong creative choice pretty much every single time. There's a saying that even a broken clock is right twice a day, but that just does not seem to be the case with Boll. That clock is permanently broken all day long. This comes through right at the beginning of his 2005 Turkey, Alone in the Dark, which opens up with this torturously overlong opening crawl, one which completely goes against the rules of, good storytelling. Rather than following the simple rule of show, don't tell, this opening crawl vomits out a colossal exposition dump, conveying information that would have been better shown via on-screen world building, maybe? I don't know. A narrator also reads the entire thing out, making it feel like the film is just being condescending towards its audience. And hearing some of these lines spoken aloud only highlighted just how ridiculous many of them really were. Lines such as the Abkhani believe there are two worlds on this planet, a world of light and a world of darkness. Don't exactly roll off the tongue now, do they? Number 15, Alien Covenant, I'll do the fingering. Michael Fassbender's magisterial dual performance in Alien Covenant is one of the most brilliant things in just sort of their movie. And one of the many, many things that Fassbender deserves praise for is managing to deliver this line without bursting into hysterical laughter. Granted, this is a very, very brief moment, but there's a good reason it is so widely remembered even now. In this moment, android antagonist David is teaching fellow android Walter, both played by Fassbender, to play a flute. He puts the flute to Walter's lips and says, "I'll do the fingering." Oh boy. The reaction will depend on the viewer, of course. Some will just burst out into laughter. Others will just grimace until their face hurts. How did this get past the massive, massive team working on a big budget Hollywood tentpole like this? Then again, perhaps that's a bit of a silly question, as this was a film full of, iffy decisions that were somehow allowed to slide. Number 14, Jaws 3D, Breaking the Glass. Plenty of today's big-budget movies feature awful special effects, let's be honest. And that is always, always jarring, especially when considering just how much money goes into these movies nowadays. And then you look at a scene like this from 1983's terrible Jaws 3D, and most likely you'll feel some newfound appreciation for the special effects of today. They're not too bad. In this scene, leads Michael Brody and Kay Morgan are in an underwater control room when the villainous shark suddenly appears in front of the window. Essentially, what looks like a still image of a shark floats along towards the window. Eventually opens its jaws a tiny little bit, and then it stops just as the unconvincing glass breakage special effects are shown. Once again, CGI in modern Hollywood can be pretty hit or miss at times, but it would be difficult to say any of it looks half as bad as this. This is something else. Number 13, Black Christmas 2019, Not All Men. Why are you allowed to say all this S-word about men and we're supposed to just sit here and take it? Because men have all the power. Not all men are R-words, Chris. I'm not. You just lump me in with the bad ones because I'm a man. Yeah, this dialogue does sound like some people just having an argument on Twitter, but oh no, this is real dialogue that actually got put in an actual movie. Yikes. I mean, kudos to the actors in this scene, Elise Shannon and Simon Mead, for delivering this dialogue a little bit convincingly. And with a straight face, to be honest, because that must have been quite the challenge. Number 12, Saw 3D. You call that a franchise ending? Alright, it's time to drop a massive hot take now. Are you ready? The reboot of the Saw franchise in 2017 was kind of justified. I mean, who'd have wanted to leave things like this, really? Saw 3D is one of the worst franchise endings of recent times. Like, compared to this, Rise of Skywalker looks outright masterful. Yep, I said it. In this one, Mark Hoffman is trying to capture and kill Jill Tuck, Jigsaw's ex-wife, in revenge for her trying to kill him. While one of the most annoying cops in horror movie history chases him. Eventually, Hoffman manages to kill Jill, but then he's punished for this by being left to die in the bathroom from the first movie by none other than Dr. Lawrence Gordon. As pretty much everyone guessed long before the fact, Lawrence Gordon is indeed another Jigsaw apprentice, yay! Which was a classic case of logic being sacrificed in favour of fan service. Why would Gordon join forces with the man who nearly killed his family? Nothing about this feels like any sort of an ending to the overall story. It was later revealed that there was meant to be a Saw 8, actually, to finish everything off, but after Saw 6's box office returns dropped, they hastily reworked the finale into just one movie. Number 11, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, Ben's Son. I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, what a silly title that is, features one of the all-time worst killer reveals, which brings with it one of the cringiest lines ever heard in a movie as well. You don't get it. Will Benson. Ben's son. Hi, Dad. Will, seemingly a new friend of protagonist Julie, says this just as Ben Willis pops up behind him. As it turns out, Ben survived the original film, and now he and his son are working together. Yay! As a general rule of thumb, giving a twist villain a giveaway name that hints at their true nature is a pretty bad idea. For example, a similar thing happened with Incredibles 2, calling its twist villain Evelyn Dever, which, of course, sounds like Evil Endeavor, doesn't it? Ha 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 ha. This kind of twist is already iffy, but saying it aloud like this is just, cringeworthy, my soul. This was a dud of a horror sequel all around, yet nothing else has left quite such a stain in the memory as this moment right here. Suddenly, a certain controversial twist from the 2025 reboot doesn't look quite so bad, does it? Number 10, Fantasy Island, the whole finale. Fantasy Island is one of the very worst horror films of, the 21st century. Pretty much everything about it is infuriating, and yet, just when you think it can't get any worse, it outdoes itself with this climax. The unconvincing special effects, the wasted cast, the head-smackingly dull PG-13 scares, the groan-worthy attempts at emotional manipulation, the convoluted, never-ending twists. Oh yep, it's all here, baby. This finale, with its uber-generic zombie monsters and total lack of grit, could not have been any less scary if it tried. And worst of all, it throws in one final twist, the most infuriating one of all. It's revealed that Melanie, one of the people trapped on the island, actually orchestrated the whole thing. What is she like? Bringing the other characters there because she blames them for the death of a guy that she was meant to go on a date with one night. As well as feeling totally forced, Melanie's motives were petty in the extreme. If this had been a parody and the joke had been that the villain had silly motivations, then this would have probably worked a treat. But much like with everything else in this unbearable train wreck of a movie, it is all played far too straight. Number 9, Jason X, KM14 vs. Jason. If decades ago, Friday the 13th fans had been predicting the future of this series, well, few would have had a movie where Jason Voorhees goes to space, is turned into a cyborg, and then embarks on a rampage aboard an interstellar spaceship. Why? Because it was a terrible idea. And indeed, Jason X is arguably the worst movie in the entire series. It's a largely wretched affair with a small handful of strong scenes, most notably the liquid nitrogen death scene, and many terrible ones, including this sequence in which KM14 destroys Jason in one of the cringiest fight scenes you'll ever see in your life. From KM14's Matrix-style flipping to the risible special effects, from the goofy fight choreography, in a series that, to give it credit, is reasonably short on notably awful scenes. This right here stands tall as the worst sequence in Friday the 13th history. Number 8, Truth or Dare, The Grinning Ghosts. Someone needs to stop director Jeff Wadlow, stop him now. In the decade since he killed the Kick-Ass franchise, he's inexplicably been given the reins to several other projects. And none of them, absolutely none of them, have worked out. Now, the aforementioned Fantasy Island is what many would class as his worst one yet, but he made another infamous work in 2018, one which features a creative choice so misjudged it is a total mystery as to how it ever got past a team of producers. Whenever someone's possessed by the villainous demon, they do the goofiest smile imaginable and then say, "Truth or dare?" Well, if this was meant to be scary, well, it absolutely wasn't. It was actually unintentionally funny, and most screenings probably had quite a bit of laughter in them. It's difficult to understand how anyone thought this would ever be a good idea. Hollywood is just a mysterious place sometimes, isn't it? Number 7, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, the opening scene. Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey immediately gained attention for turning a beloved children's character into a bloodthirsty slasher movie villain. Well, I mean, that's one way of utilizing a property that's just entered the public domain, isn't it? It ensured a larger than expected viewing audience for one of the worst horror movies of the decade, maybe even the century. Normally, a low-budget British indie horror doing so well financially and even launching a whole franchise would be a triumph, wouldn't it? Here, though, it's a bit of a tragedy, and one can tell from the very beginning of the thing. In this sequence, Christopher Robin and his fiancée Mary visit his old home of the 100-acre wood and are ambushed by Winnie the Pooh and Piglet, who have turned into vengeful killers after Christopher Robin left them to go to college. What a mean guy. This sequence sums up everything wrong with the whole movie better than a review ever could. Viewers will immediately know that they're about to suffer through a historically bad horror film. And I mean, that's if they don't turn it off as soon as this dreadful opening concluded, which, come to think of it, many people might have done. Number 6, Halloween Resurrection. Trick or treat, mother effer. Yep, it's time to talk about Halloween Resurrection. You knew it was coming, which is widely considered to be the nadir of the series. Now, there are plenty of regrettable moments throughout the Halloween movies. The twist that Michael and Laurie are siblings, Halloween 5's infamous cliffhanger ending, that ridiculous cult subplot from Halloween 6, all of Halloween 2 from 2009's pretentious dream sequences. But 2002's Halloween Resurrection has more awful moments than any of the others, including a ridiculous retconning of Michael's death in the previous film, and Michael weightlessly killing off Laurie Strode at the very beginning. Impressively though, there's a particular moment so appalling that anything else is completely overshadowed. Impressive. Busta Rhymes yelling "trick or treat, mother effer" in the most jarring way imaginable, and also karate kicking Michael Myers out of a window. Between Rhymes' awful acting and one of the most terrifying horror movie villains ever just being made to look like an incompetent idiot, everything about this is painful to watch in the extreme. Still, at least we'll always have the original. Yay. Number 5, The Ring 2, Deer Attack. 2005's The Ring 2, which ranks among the absolute worst horror sequels of the century, I've said that a few times, but yep, it's that kind of list, features this unforgettably awful turkey of a scare. While protagonist Rachel and her son Aidan are driving along down the road, they suddenly get attacked by several unconvincing CGI deer. Between the subpar special effects and the annoying child actor just repeatedly yelling "don't stop" in the same tone of voice, Rachel does keep stopping the car, to be fair to him. This probably had entire cinemas just rolling their eyes in the aisles. It's a sequence that's not only devoid of fear, but it's also of logic. It is never made clear why deer are going after them. Now, previously, the movie's ghost antagonist, Samara Morgan, possessed horses like that happened, but deer, are not horses. Not even director Hideo Nakata, a master of horror who actually directed the Japanese Ring, could make this mess work. Number 4, Texas Chainsaw 3D. Do you think, cuz? Some lines of dialogue are so awful that they become cemented in cinematic legend. And to join the ranks, we've got "Do You Think, Cuz?" A piece of dialogue that has single-handedly secured Texas Chainsaw 3D a space in internet infamy. Protagonist Heather yells this out as she tosses Leatherface his chainsaw to cringe-inducing effect. Now, Alexandra Daddario is a talented actress, as anyone who's seen her work in TV will definitely know. But even she couldn't make this sound anything less than toe-curling. Heather, who has turned out to be a long-lost member of the Sawyer family, has been tied up in a slaughterhouse by a corrupt police department. They want to lure Leatherface to his death, but he frees Heather when he realizes their family connection, and she then joins forces with him despite the fact that he's murdered her friends and tried to kill her many times. Right. Everything about this sequence is just intolerably ridiculous. The fight choreography, the plot holes, the way that Leatherface is suddenly presented as the good guy, while the sheriff's department are just cartoonish villains out of nowhere. And none of it makes any sense at all. Number 3, Jaws the Revenge, the finale. No franchise has ever fallen as far as Jaws has. It began with one of the greatest films ever made, only to conclude with one of the worst films ever made. And that film is Jaws the Revenge, an unbearable sequel that isn't even so bad it's good. There's pretty much no tension or action, while the thing that kills the shark is Ellen Brody driving the boat's bowsprit into it. Right. It then explodes, for some reason or another. Therefore, it's just an unacceptably dull climax, and what makes it even worse is just how stupid it all is. The shark eats a plane. Hoagie emerges from the water completely dry, and of course there's the moment where the shark rears out of the water, balances on its fin, and then roars like a lion. Sharks don't roar, they don't even have vocal cords. Well, we'll always have the original Jaws, eh? That's something that'll help us forget this pain. Number 2, House of the Dead, The Shootout. House of the Dead was a film that put its director on the map, but not in a good way. Rather, it announced to the world that the Ed Wood of the 21st century had arrived, and his name was Uwe Boll. I've forgotten how to say that name, and I've already said it once in this video. What is wrong with me? It's a weird name. Yep, it's this guy again. And there is a particular set piece which serves as this grotesque microcosm of all of his shortcomings as a filmmaker. In this sequence, the remaining heroic characters have a big shootout with the zombies. And everything about this is so incompetent, it's kind of scary to watch, really, but for all the wrong reasons. Idiotic bullet time moments, the rancid editing, the goofy rock soundtrack, the atrocious cinematography, the unconvincing acting, the total lack of fear, and worst of all, the way that footage from the video games is just randomly inserted at several points. Like, what the hell are we watching? It's mesmerizing in its unrestrained awfulness. It's like a black hole of wrong creative decisions just sucking you in and never letting you go. Still, this moment should be shown to aspiring horror filmmakers, I think. It can show exactly how not to make a movie. Number 1, The Devil Inside, Weblink. Is this the worst horror movie ending of all time? You know what, I think it probably is. Now, there are plenty of other terrible endings in the genre, but at least those actually are endings. This found footage horror, though, which was already bottom of the barrel dreck even prior to this, does not have a conclusion at all. It cuts to black mid-set piece and then just shows a web link, describing the case as unresolved and directing viewers to a website to learn more. What? Seriously, what were they thinking here? This abrupt non-ending was the equivalent of the movie just blowing a raspberry at its audience and then giving them all the finger. Not the good finger. As they had just spent their money on a film that felt genuinely unfinished. Like, just there you go, there's half a movie. Unfortunately, despite the negative critical reception, this actually made over $100 million, more than 100 times its budget. So an awful lot of people were left feeling shortchanged. And to make all this even worse, for the very few people who would have been compelled to look this website up, it's not even active anymore. As such, if anything, this movie has actually got more and more insulting with time. Fancy that.